this is Byron Brown. I'm a lawyer, the anti-lawyer, and this is where I explain legal news that pops up in the news. Mostly everybody has heard about the McDonald's hot coffee case. Liebeck v. McDonald's restaurants. Stella Liebeck was burnt by McDonald's coffee. She filed a lawsuit against McDonald's and was awarded $2.9 million. This is back in '93. $2.9 million in today's dollars totals approximately $5.7 million. So did Stella get awarded too much money? In 1994, $2.9 million was a ton of money. That is why when most people think of the McDonald's hot coffee case, they think a lady got burnt by coffee and became a millionaire. Meaning, the burn Stella suffered was similar to the burn anyone may receive at any time they're burnt by hot coffee, or for that matter, hot liquid. Based off of this logic, people reference the Liebeck v. McDonald's restaurants case as this poster case for frivolous lawsuits. And this couldn't not be further from the truth. It is more accurate to state the Liebeck v. McDonald's restaurant case is a clear example of a corporate defendant more concerned with its bottom line than the safety of its customers. If you like my videos, please subscribe to my channel. So here's the facts. 79-year-old Stella Liebeck of Albuquerque, New Mexico, went to McDonald's drive-thru with her grandson. Stella was in the passenger seat, and her grandson handed her a styrofoam cup containing coffee, which Stella had ordered. After receiving the order, the grandson pulled forward and stopped the car. It's at this time that Stella placed the styrofoam cup between her knees and attempted to remove the plastic lid to add cream and sugar. As she attempted to remove the lid, the cup spilled all over her lap. At the time, Stella was wearing sweatpants. Obviously, this quickly absorbed the 190-degree coffee. Now keep in mind, water boils at 212 degrees. The coffee injured and burned Stella in her inner thighs, her buttocks, genitals, and groin area. The coffee caused third-degree burns that extended through Stella's subcutaneous fat, muscle, and bone. This was deep. Stella spent 8 days in the hospital where she underwent painful skin grafting and debridement treatments. During trial, it was learned that McDonald's had been aware of more than 700 claims made between 1982 and 92 of people being burned by its coffee. Some of these claims involved third-degree burns similar to Stella's burns. It was further learned that McDonald's had previously spent $500,000 settling these prior coffee burn claims. So what's Stella's position? Well, prior to even obtaining a lawyer, Stella requested McDonald's to pay her medical bills. Reasonable? They totaled 11 grand. McDonald's refused. Before filing a lawsuit, Stella's then retained lawyer, Houston attorney Reed Morgan, offered to settle Stella's case for 90 grand. Again, McDonald's refused and replied with an insult of an offer of $800. Unable to settle, Stella filed a lawsuit against McDonald's in 1993, alleging in part the coffee she drank was defective because of its excessive temperature and inadequate warnings. Stella also sought punitive damages due to the allegation that McDonald's had a conscious indifference towards the safety of its customers. Again, prior to trial, Stella's attorney again tried to settle the case with an offer of 300 grand. Additionally, a mediator, so a neutral party, recommended that the case settle for 225 grand. What do you think McDonald's did? They refused again. So why are they refusing? What was McDonald's position? McDonald's position was fairly simple. Its position was that customers wanted hot coffee. And its research dictated that for coffee to reach its peak tastiness, it must be brewed at 190 degrees. McDonald's also took the position that people know coffee's hot, and they know they're gonna get burned. They further argued that Stella contributed to her own injuries by placing the cup between her legs, and not promptly removing her clothes after the spill. Well, McDonald's just didn't give a f***. McDonald's knew between 1982 and 92, there were 700 claims involving people burnt by hot coffee. Some of these claims included burns similar to Stella's, third-degree burns. Additionally, it came out McDonald's had spent $500,000 keeping people quiet, settling cases where people had been injured by hot coffee. McDonald's own quality assurance manager testified McDonald's enforced a policy that required coffee to be served at 185 degrees, give or take 5 degrees. He also admitted that serving coffee at this temperature was not fit for consumption because it could cause scalding injuries to the mouth and throat. The following is an exact excerpt of this guy's trial testimony. You know, as a matter of fact, that coffee is a hazard, selling it at 180 to 190 degrees, don't you?
I've testified before the fact that this coffee can cause burns.
It is hazardous at this temperature.
At that high temperature, the coffee is a hazard.
If a customer attempts to swallow that coffee, isn't it a fact that it'll scald their throat or esophagus?
Yes, under those circumstances, if they could get the coffee in their throat, that could happen. Yes.
This gentleman went on to admit that coffee McDonald's served is too hot to consume. When somebody buys a cup of coffee and it's sold to them in McDonald's and they go and they sit down and drink it in less than 5 minutes, it's not fit for consumption to drink if consumption means to drink.
It's perfectly fit to open the top and add cream and sugar and really dilute the product as far as temperature goes, and it would probably be very fit for consumption.
Yeah, if you don't mind getting burned, it's fit for consumption. My question is it fit to be drunk? Actually fluid going down your esophagus?
I think I already answered that.
And the answer is no, it's not, isn't it?
Yes, we answered that.
It's hard to say that McDonald's cared at all when their training manual expressly states that coffee should be brewed at 195 to 205 degrees and served at 180 to 190 degrees for optimal taste. McDonald's expert testified that he was aware that a person could suffer third-degree burns by a coffee served at 130 degrees. His logic was simple, I guess. Since third-degree burns could happen at 130 degrees, then it didn't matter that McDonald's served their coffee at 180 to 190 degrees. It's laughable. Additionally, McDonald's made two other arguments that are just as laughable. First, Stella contributed to her own injuries. McDonald's argued that since Stella put the coffee cup between her legs, like every human does in the world, she contributed to her own injuries. Second, McDonald's argued that since Stella failed to remove her clothes quickly, her injuries were worse than they should have been. Okay, so what Stella should have done is as soon as she was burned by McDonald's coffee at 190 degrees, she should have jumped out of her car in a public parking lot and stripped buck naked to avoid being burned further by McDonald's coffee because they want to serve it at a stupid high temperature. These sort of arguments are the exact same arguments that cause juries to hate defendants. And if the jury hates a defendant, like I'm sure they did here with McDonald's, they'll find a way to make that defendant pay. The trial was more about McDonald's incompetence and stupidity than anything else. However, Stella's injuries played a large part in this case, as did the experts she retained to testify. I'm about to show you pictures of Stella's injuries. They're very graphic and can be disturbing. If you do not wish to see these photographs, then I encourage you to please fast forward through this next part. As you can see, these photographs show extreme injury and extreme burns. The pain Stella must have felt can almost be felt through these photographs. These photographs without a doubt had the jury gasping upon review. You put these photographs together with McDonald's complete indifference to safety, and it's easy for anybody to see why a jury came down so hard on McDonald's in this case. Stella retained an expert in the field of thermodynamics as it relates to skin and burns. Thermodynamics. That expert testified that full thickness burns, third-degree burns, that Stella suffered could have resulted in 2 to 3 seconds of exposure at 190 degrees, 12 to 15 seconds at 180 degrees, and 20 seconds at 160 degrees. You can see how this alone makes McDonald's arguments that Stella should have removed her clothes faster completely ridiculous. It's not like Stella knew she was about to be burned by 190 degree coffee and received third-degree burns. She was totally unprepared. Once the coffee spilled onto her lap, she started to experience excruciating pain. When she realized what was happening, an easy 5 to 10 seconds would have passed. The damage was done. To argue then she should have jumped out of her car and taken off all her clothes is a stupid argument. Again, likely why the jury got so pissed at McDonald's. Yes, coffee is hot. However, Stella's warning expert testified, yes, people know coffee's hot, but people do not know how hot and what temperature can cause third-degree burns. This is why McDonald's argument that people know coffee's hot and therefore safe is ridiculous. Ask any one of your friends how hot the average cup of coffee is, and they won't know. Additionally, ask your friends if anybody knows the correlation between the temperature of liquid and the degrees of the burns. No one will know. Let's take this a step further. Ask any one of your friends if they know what first degree, second degree, or third degree burns actually means. Yes, as a society, we generally know that coffee's hot, but there's no way anybody would believe that spilling coffee in a manner similar to Stella would result in the injuries depicted in the pictures we just saw. Yet, everybody wants to say she received too much money. A jury came back and awarded Stella $200,000 in compensatory damages, which covered her medical bills and pain and suffering. The jury also awarded Stella $2.7 million for punitive damages to punish McDonald's for their willful, reckless, malicious, and wanton conduct. Namely, knowing that its coffee was served at a temperature that could cause third-degree burns and did nothing to make it safer. The trial court reduced the punitive damages from $2.7 million to $480,000. The parties then participated in post-trial negotiations where the exact settlement amount reached was confidential, but it is suspected the settlement amount was for less than $600,000. In 1994, Stella was awarded a total of $2.9 million. $2.9 million in today's dollars totals approximately $5.7 million. So I ask you, if someone was injured by McDonald's coffee, like Stella was, would an award of $5.7 million be too much, too little, or the right amount? Please comment below. Thanks for tuning in and subscribe to my channel. Thanks.